The night was still, and the air heavy with an unsettling calm that seemed to drape over Tehran like a thick, suffocating blanket. It was one of those nights when the city itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. In the heart of the old city, where the buildings huddled close together and the alleyways twisted like serpents, there lived a story whispered from one generation to the next, a story that had grown roots deep in the psyche of the people. It was the story of Jenn. Once, many years ago, there was a small village nestled in the Alborz mountains where a young girl named Jenn lived. Jenn was known throughout her village for her beauty and kindness. She had long, flowing hair the color of midnight and eyes that sparkled like the stars. She was the beloved daughter of the village healer, and she had inherited her mother's gift for healing and wisdom. But Jenn's life was not destined to remain serene. One winter, a stranger arrived at the village. He was tall, with piercing eyes and an air of authority that commanded respect and fear in equal measure. He claimed to be a traveler from a distant land, seeking refuge from the harsh weather. The villagers welcomed him with open arms, for hospitality was sacred to them. The stranger, however, had other intentions. He was not a mere traveler. He was a sorcerer, a practitioner of dark arts. His name was Iranian. Under the guise of gratitude, Iranian began to weave his dark magic, casting a spell of desire over Jenn. He wanted her for himself, to be his bride and his prisoner. Jenn's mother sensed the danger, but before she could act, Iranian struck. One stormy night, he kidnapped Jenn, spiriting her away to a hidden cave deep in the mountains. There, he bound her with enchantments, intending to bend her will to his. Jenn, however, was strong. She resisted Iranian with all her might, her spirit unbroken even as he tried to crush it. But the sorcerer was relentless. In a final act of defiance, Jenn used the last of her strength to curse Iranian. She vowed that her spirit would haunt him and any who followed in his dark path, ensuring that his evil would never go unpunished. Iranian, enraged, killed Jenn in a fit of fury, but her curse took hold. Jenn's spirit did not rest. It lingered, bound to the place of her death and to the darkness Iranian had wrought. In the bustling metropolis of modern Tehran, the story of Jenn had faded into legend, a tale to frighten children. But for some, the legend was all too real. A group of friends, young professionals disillusioned with their mundane lives, decided to investigate the legend. They were thrill seekers, always on the lookout for the next adrenaline rush. There was Arash, the leader, a charismatic yet reckless architect. Sarah, a journalist with a nose for trouble. Riza, a tech-savvy engineer. And Lila, a history enthusiast with a fascination for the occult. One night, over drinks and laughter, Arash proposed they explore the ruins of the old village where Jenn's story originated. It was a remote location, untouched by modernity, and the perfect place for a weekend adventure. The others, fueled by curiosity and a bit of alcohol, readily agreed. The journey to the village was arduous. The winding mountain roads were treacherous, and the weather seemed to turn against them as they climbed higher. A thick fog rolled in, reducing visibility to mere feet. The friends joked and laughed, but an undercurrent of unease crept into their conversations. When they finally reached the village, they found it abandoned, as if frozen in time. The houses were crumbling, the streets overgrown with weeds. It was as if the village had been forgotten by the world. The friends set up camp in the village square, eager to start their exploration. As night fell, the atmosphere grew heavy with an unspoken dread. The wind howled through the broken windows, and the trees whispered secrets they couldn't quite hear. The first night was uneventful, though none of them slept well. Strange noises echoed through the night, and shadows seemed to move of their own accord. The next day, they decided to explore the surrounding area, hoping to find the cave where Jenn had met her tragic end. Layla, with her keen interest in history, led the way. She had studied old maps and legends, piecing together clues that pointed to a hidden cave high in the mountains. As they climbed, the sense of unease grew stronger. The path was steep and treacherous, and the fog thickened, shrouding them in an eerie silence. Finally, they found the cave. It was a dark, foreboding place, its entrance covered in ancient symbols that sent a chill down their spines. As they entered, a sense of foreboding washed over them. The air inside was cold and damp, and the walls seemed to close in around them. At the back of the cave, they found an altar covered in strange markings. It was here that Jenn had been imprisoned, her spirit bound to this place. Layla began to decipher the markings, her voice trembling with fear and excitement. But as she read the ancient words aloud, something changed. The air grew colder, and a low, menacing growl echoed through the cave. The friends looked at each other, their faces pale with fear. The growl grew louder, turning into a voice filled with rage and sorrow. It was Jenn. Her spirit, awakened by their presence, filled the cave with an oppressive energy. "Leave this place," she whispered, her voice echoing off the walls. "Leave, or suffer my wrath." The friends, terrified, tried to flee, but the cave entrance had vanished, replaced by solid rock. They were trapped. One by one, Jenn's spirit began to torment them. Arash, the fearless leader, was the first to fall. He was consumed by visions of darkness, his mind shattered by the horrors he saw. He screamed, clawing at his eyes, until he collapsed, lifeless. Sarah, the journalist, was next. Jenn's spirit filled her mind with the pain and suffering of countless souls. She writhed on the ground, her screams echoing through the cave, until she too fell silent. Reza, the tech-savvy engineer, tried to use his gadgets to find a way out, but Jenn's spirit twisted his devices, turning them against him. He was electrocuted, his body convulsing in agony until he was no more. Layla, the history enthusiast, was the last. She realized too late that they had awoken something they could not control. Jenn's spirit confronted her, eyes blazing with fury. "You should have heeded my warning," Jenn whispered. "Now you will join me in eternal torment." Layla's screams echoed through the cave as Jenn's spirit claimed her. Days later, a search party found the abandoned village. The friend's car was still there, but there was no sign of them. The cave, too, was empty, the entrance sealed once more. The villagers who remembered the old legends shook their heads, whispering that the curse of Jenn had claimed more victims. The story spread, becoming a new chapter in the legend of Jenn, a warning to those who dared to seek out the darkness. And in the heart of the old city, where the alleyways twisted like serpents, the story of Jenn continued to be whispered, a tale of beauty, tragedy, and a spirit that would never rest. In the depths of the cave, Jenn's spirit lingered, bound by her curse. She watched as the years passed, as the world changed, but her vengeance was not yet complete. She waited, knowing that someday someone else would come. Someone would hear her story and be drawn to the darkness. And when they did, she would be ready. For Jenn was the eternal watcher, the guardian of a forgotten legend, and her story was far from over.